Welcome to the Late Game Podcast, a podcast about all things board gaming, from rolling dice to painting minis and everything in between. I'm your host Tyler, and with me is Russ.
How are you?
And Kenneth.
What up?
And this week we're going to expose our shelves of shame. But first, we managed to all attend the same game night at once. And that doesn't happen as often as I would like. And I have to say that despite our shifting schedules and the last-minute change-ups that have happened lately, game nights where we do all end up there, those are my favorite by far.
Yeah.
Definitely.
We also managed to roll up some characters for D&D fairly recently, so when things smooth out for the campaign, we should have a rather enjoyable adventure as well.
Yeah. We were supposed to start tomorrow night, but, you know,
Halloween.
you guys all kind of bailed on it. It's fine. I adjusted my whole life, canceled all these plans.
I did not bail on it. My wife did. Like when you said, "Hey, does Wednesday work?" I was like, "Yeah, sure, that should be fine." She was like, I babysit our niece on Wednesday and like every other day during the week, so if they're not going to come to our house, I can't play."
Yeah.
So
like, we
crap.
can figure it out. I think the one worry I have about during the week at my house is just when wrestling starts, or not at my house, is by the time I'd get done with practice, get showered, because you're going to want me to shower. By the time I get to your house, we're looking at after 8. But I think Saturdays will work, hopefully.
That would be ideal.
Yeah. It'd give us time to play a game,
I
too.
was gonna say, especially if we could get there early, play something
Yeah.
else, and then get into some D&D.
Oh, hell yeah. So, speaking of playing games, what have we played lately?
So I was really excited. God of War came out on Friday. The Come On God of War card game, cooperative.
Right.
So I went out and bought that Friday and got that to the table.
Are the
and
cool?
really
Are the
enjoyed
minis
it.
cool or no?
No, but
No?
okay. So
Alright.
I know Come On has that Come On Play, so like there's no minis in there.
Yeah.
But I'm like, ooh, based on what they did with Bloodborne, they're gonna have some sweet events with some sweet components.
Yeah, it'd be cool if they do something like that. I didn't actually play it, but you were raving about it, so
Yeah, I
Hopefully
very
they-
much liked it.
hopefully they do support it with their CMON play and like that initiative and support it with like some aftermarket stuff.
Yeah, I know. So Marvel Champions came out recently too. I think that's what
Yeah,
it's
I've
called,
seen
right?
it.
The co-op card game. That one had no. I didn't really have interest in it. I don't know what it was about it. Nothing really caught me.
Yeah,
The whole idea of being like cooperative, fight a villain, it just seemed like not super exciting. I don't know why. Because it seems like one I would like.
Is it because you already played Legendary?
Maybe.
Like,
I don't know what it was. Maybe just the fact that it's like it seemed to me like it was 4 people just fighting one villain. There's not much like story there or anything. So I don't know. Maybe there
Yeah.
is more than I realized.
I definitely like. At first, I was thinking that I was probably gonna get it like right when it came out. I even want to say that I looked into pre-ordering it and then decided not to. But like, I definitely want to try it, and I'll probably pick it up either from an online shop that's cheaper or if I see it on sale because it's Marvel, it's a card game,
Yeah.
and I mean it's Fantasy Flight and it's a living card game, and I know that I would love to play more of like the Arkham Horror
Yeah,
card game.
That's true. I
And
would like to as well.
I don't like that's just not a thing that anyone else in my house is into, but they're all into Marvel, so I could see myself getting that
Yeah.
onto the table a little bit more.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm willing to try it. I just wasn't as excited. So this is a co-op card game, but you have quests. Plus, I've always loved the art for God of War, but I don't have a PlayStation, so I think that was kind of the appeal too. Like, ooh, I can finally do something in that world.
I've only played the first 3, I think, and they were awesome.
Yeah.
There wasn't a bad one in there.
So you have these quests, and you have these quests make up this kind of picture of like 8 cards, and then you get to interact with them and try to beat these monsters. It's got a really cool combat system. But my son and I, the first play we started flipping over cards. I was like, oh, this is really easy. Hopefully there's more depth to it. I've only finished the first quest once. So, and when you finish a quest, there's 2 more quests, and you choose between the 2. Whichever one you don't choose hinders your quest. Like, everybody starts with 1 damage was the one that we flipped over when we went to start the next one.
Okay.
When you beat that, there's 3 bosses to compete with. So it is not an easy game, which I think kind of drives my excitement for it more. I'm really into it.
I know that you're into the more difficult co-ops.
Yeah.
And have you played this one solo?
No, I almost did today.
Is there
it
a
seems
solo
great.
mode?
Yeah, it seems like it'd be a really good, quick setup solo game.
Right on.
So.
If you play it solo, is it going to change? Is there like different difficulty settings, or is it would gameplay change that?
Your
for
hero
you?
has different abilities, and I think it might trigger easier.
Right. Well, I just think of so there's games that like Zombicide at the end of like every person.
Yeah, this would probably be like that. Yeah.
So where maybe it wasn't Zombicide, but I know there's games that it's like, part of each turn structure, you do your 3 actions or whatever, and then you activate the enemies. So there's co-op games like that the more people there are, kind of the harder it gets, because on a trip around the table,
right,
the enemies get more activations the more people you have.
Yeah,
and I think that's a really good way to balance things versus, either that or, Eon's End kind of does that with the turn order deck, but that's shuffled up and the challenge comes in. You don't know exactly when you're going to get a turn and when the monsters get a turn. But,
so this, at the end of your turn, you flip over a card. That's the monster card on the top. It'll trigger what cards in the quest are activated, and then it stays there. Every player does that, and then there's an additional action. And then those cards that were played against you that triggered the quest cards, everyone gets to choose 1 card out of that, and the leftover card goes on the bottom of the deck.
Okay.
So it's a deck management, like kind of a deck builder, and you get a pick out of the cards that triggered the bad guys. It's kind of cool.
Interesting.
So, but that was really good, and then we played a bunch of good new ones together that at least new to me, really loved the drafting magic. I think it's called Carnival of Monsters.
That game's rad, dude. Me and Tyler have played it quite a few times, and I feel like, we were talking in like our Discord about drafting in general earlier, and I like drafting as a mechanic, but a lot of games that incorporate that, especially like, while I was just kind of, making my case for not liking my 1 play of Blood Rage, and it's not even that I didn't like it. It just, I just felt nothing like, and so when you've got that limited pool, the more you play it, the more you know it, and so you can so there's experience is always a benefit. The more you've played a game, generally, the better you should be at it, and I really feel like drafting, as far as using air quotes randomization or a way to add randomness to a game, drafting is one of the most highly impacted by experience, and it takes away that randomness more than most other experience, more than the impact of experience on most other mechanics. So when you've got that limited pool, like a game like Blood Rage, from what it sounds like, Inish also is,
which
really
is why
limited.
I don't want to play Inish too much until we play with you, because I don't want the Blood Rage thing to happen.
Yeah. So that limited pool makes it so you kind of know what's there. You can plan for it. You can strategize against what you don't see, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Where Carnival of Monsters is just a massive pile of cards,
Right, I
and
was
it's
gonna
so
say,
random. There's like no solid,
yeah.
like
No.
the only thing that even looks like a strategy that I could say is like, on that first turn or two, you should probably be trying to get lands.
Just draft land.
Try to get lands.
That's it.
So
You might not
honestly-
even see them though. Like that
True.
might not work.
This is
Yeah.
But you
true.
want to try and get lands because they benefit you later in the game. Like
Yeah.
that's like and that strategy is totally dependent on you getting it. And we've played 5-player games, which is the full player count,
Yeah.
and we didn't get through that whole deck. Like there is a ton of
Yeah.
cards.
We didn't even get halfway through.
I think when we played with 5, we got about 3/4.
I will
2/3, 3/4.
say I know I was being lighthearted on it, but it is a Richard Garfield game, and it feels like
Yeah,
magic.
it's
Other than the combat,
So good.
other than the combat aspect of it, it felt like drafting Magic because you have the lands, you pay
Yeah.
to draft the monsters, you need to pay lands, and I'm not saying that is a bad thing. I think it's a great game.
I really, really like it. I feel like that is a good game where all it is a draft game.
Yeah.
And I feel like it's probably the only game that falls into that category that I'm really familiar with that prior experience does not have much impact. Like obviously, if I know the game, that is always going to help. But it really, like, as long as you're explained the rules decently, I don't see prior knowledge as a big benefit to that, especially if someone is nice enough to let you know, hey, you should probably go for lands the first draft or two, like the first round or two. You should be going for lands because that's going to help you the most early in the game.
It's
But
right there for me with like Seven Wonders as far as simple, good drafting game.
Yeah.
You
And
know, one
having
theme's different.
some experience is not going to swing things
Right.
your way.
Yeah.
Experience drafting, I think, would be the bigger
Yeah. With
swing. Like
with,
if you know drafting games.
Sure.
with Seven Wonders, my experience there was like similar but different, where I was playing with a bunch of guys who knew the game, so they knew what all those damn symbols meant.
Right.
And I didn't know shit, so I was like, this looks neat. This looks neat. This looks neat. Oh, I got 4 points total. It's great. Okay, whatever.
Right.
Like,
So Carnival of Monsters is a little simpler with the lands as opposed to like, I produce wood, I produce
yeah.
I can't even remember right now, but wood and
General resources.
yeah. Instead of doing all the resources and that way the lands and tapping the lands is a little simpler and cleaner in that sense. And I
Yeah.
think it's a great entry level
Yeah, I think
drafting
I
game.
really, really.
Not to
I've
say
been,
it's not good deep.
For sure.
I've been very happy with Carnival of Monsters.
Yeah.
Even
So-
though I've never won it, dude. I've played 6 times.
Really?
I've yet to win that game.
I got lucky the first time we played and won the first or second game. I don't remember which because we played it back to back.
Yeah.
And it was a ton of fun. Even losing it is fun. But
Yeah. I've done like, well, I've been second in like a few games, but I've yet to actually win that game. I've even like thought that I was winning, and then like either I was winning and then I had to factor in my loans, and they took me down just barely, and it's like, oh, I was so close.
For me, I think a good drafting game is one that you don't know if you're winning. In the sense that like I don't want to know after round 1 or 2 that I have a commanding lead
for sure.
or
Yeah.
that I'm out of the game.
Yeah.
Like I feel like a good drafting game has different ways to score that I don't have time to sit there and see what everybody else is doing to
Right.
know if I'm winning or not. I have to have a focus on my strategy and go that way, and hopefully it ends up being well.
Yeah.
So we
Well,
also played another game with a few more cards.
Yeah.
I mean, there was a lot of cards in that game. The Cthulhu.
Yeah, there's
deck
only
building-
like infinity and 7 cards or so.
Yeah.
Like there's just a massive, massive pile of cards in that game.
That one was really fun. I like the timing aspects.
Yeah,
of
like
combat. Like it feels a little different. Timing's a little different the first round or two you play, but after a round or two, it makes sense why everything happens the way it does. I love the fact that I either have to spend my resources to improve my deck or keep that to kill the monsters.
Right.
Like
Yeah.
that is a strategic decision each round. It's not like one way is better than the other,
yeah.
but
I know-
I need to decide.
When I tried it solo and immediately got trounced, which now that you've played it, you could see where going solo, like if the wrong thing comes out, you're just screwed.
Oh,
yeah.
So when I know I mentioned that it has kind of an odd flow for a deck builder, like it just has a little bit of a different order of operations than what I'm used to. But once you get used to it, it feels very, very strategic.
Yeah.
For being a very, very random.
Well, I loved how much we had to use everybody's abilities.
Yeah.
Like, it felt like our abilities were important. The fact that I was a carny and already insane, I didn't lose sanity very much. So I could benefit on using cards that
You know, the
caused me to
crazy
lose
thing about
sanity.
that is, so I have the base game and the like standalone. So it's basically, I have two of that size game all combined into one. So I've got like 40 something investigators with six of them at the table. They all felt important.
Yeah.
I obviously haven't played with all 40 of them, but if they can hit that with even close to that with all 40 characters, like that's amazing. Like that in and of itself, just having that much variety, having them all feel unique, having them all feel important, like that's an amazing like feat of game design and balance.
Yeah.
The only thing that I'd say is a drawback is when Kenneth hands you your opening deck and he gives you like 5 stagger cards instead of the normal amount of moxie. It kind of makes it hard for you to get going.
Yeah, so I'm almost positive I know exactly what happened there. And I was taking whatever the other cards are, like Sleuth or whatever.
Yeah.
And then I was setting those down, and I was taking the stagger cards and putting them on top. And for whatever reason, your stagger cards went on bottom. And then I looked at the pile again, and I was like, oh, that one needs stagger cards. So I threw more stagger cards on. And we were, a good 2-3 turns into the game before you mentioned something like that. And we were all like, shit, you're not supposed to be like a handful of staggers. What's going on?
Just on those stagger cards, though, most deck builders have like throwaway cards in your deck, right? But those are straight up punishment cards.
Mm-hmm.
So if you don't get rid of them or some way to mitigate them,
they do nothing.
Right.
You know, the good stagger cards are just like taking up space in your hand. The bad ones, there's a downside. Like you lose health, you lose sanity.
Yeah.
Like, pfft.
So you have to, which I love when deck builders do this, you have to mitigate your opening deck, not just
improve it, but you have to like get rid of that shit or it'll take you down.
Yeah, it was good. I felt like not a broken combo. I felt like we had Zach's ability with the card that we had that he could keep getting.
But how likely were we to draw that card?
Right. But even with that, it felt
just a rough estimate, like 1 in 1,000.
Yeah.
There's so many damn cards in that game.
But even with that, it felt like we could still lose. We weren't far from it.
Yeah.
But if we would have not had that card, holy cow. Just when the cultists come out, that would have been 25 points each if we wouldn't have. Which is funny because that round, I felt, if I remember right, it felt like we decided, let's keep some moxie so we can beat the villains this round.
Right.
If that would have been another round, we would have been punched in the face for 2 rounds.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're talking 25 damage each every round.
It's a tough game, and it's fun, and the art's really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, the artwork's awesome. It's kind of comic book style.
Yeah, like it. I want to say that I described it as like paintings from a crazy person.
Yeah,
they all kind of look like that. They're really, really cool, really high contrast.
Yeah.
And it's a game that I really feel like that one would reward multiple, like revisiting it because of that. It's just such a weird flow that those first couple of turns you're kind of going, so do I do this? Okay, is that going to benefit me? Is this going to help? You know, and like
the not
There's
knowing.
definitely one that's on
now that we understand it, it's like, okay, so here's what I'm going to do. Like I'm going to show up with a little bit more of a strategy, and you can have more of an overarching plan. You know, not just going, okay, so this came out in the market, and I guess I'll take that. You can be like going, all right, I'm looking for these types of cards, and you can talk to each other and be like, all right, because each person after they buy their stuff, the market gets refilled, so it can be like, all right, Tyler, I am going for guns. My ability gives me better stuff with guns. If you see guns, don't take them. Leave them there. Like, everyone start
Yeah.
picking things through because I don't see any guns. I want to go last. I want to get some guns on the board.
Right.
You know, and there's a lot of opportunities for that kind of strategizing too.
Every time I play a deck builder or a drafting game like we did Friday, I look at all the games on my shelf. I'm like, man, I need to play that again because I love both those mechanics. Like deck building,
Yeah.
I love, and I haven't played my favorite deck builder in quite some time, which is Trains, which expansion's on its way, so I need to get that to the table.
Man, that's just a theme you don't see in board games, is it?
No.
Not enough train games.
Well, it's a. I'm telling you, that box
That
has
one,
no
that one
appeal. I
specifically.
ended up getting
it's
it.
Ugly.
I can't remember how I ended up getting it. I ended up
Yeah.
with it and absolutely fell in love. It's my favorite deck builder because it has it every time you do something good, it stuffs bad cards into your deck, so you have to take turns to get rid of that stuff. But
Just
anyway,
like real trains.
yeah.
I want to. I do. You've talked it up enough. I want to try it. It sounds interesting, and I would love to try like an 18xx game, just because they're like legendary with their depth and stuff.
Yeah.
But like trains just don't appeal to me at all. So I'm not like gonna run out and get one. It's
Yeah.
like, hey,
It's a
who in our
theme
group
that-
wants to play a train game? Oh, no one. Great.
It's
So I guess I'll never experience an 18xx unless maybe I learn to talk to people at conventions.
Yeah, it's not a theme I usually like, which might come up later and as we talk about our shelves of shame. But
So we also played Betrayal.
yeah.
Played a pretty fun game of Betrayal at House on the Hill. And Betrayal is a 3 to 6 player game designed by Bruce Glasgow and published by Avalon Hill and Wizards of the Coast. And in Betrayal, you're basically a strange cast of characters that you find yourself in the entryway of a very large and bizarre house. And the players explore the house for a number of rounds, searching for who knows what, before you realize that one of the members of the group is not exactly who they said that they were. And during the search, the players will find event, item, and omen cards that will end up triggering things that happen inside the house. Some of these things are good, some of them are not, but all of them seem to affect how the story ends up playing out in the end. And so when players find the omen cards, they'll roll a set of available dice in an effort to roll more pips than omens revealed. And once a player rolls less pips than the omens, then they trigger the haunt. And the haunt is where the game changes gears, and the
Nice
team...
rolling, Ken.
I know. What was
Has-
it? The third omen I managed to roll only
Yes.
2 pips. It was
I was gonna
awesome.
say, yeah, that's where the team has a much different objective, and usually it becomes this one versus many, in that the only one side has a chance to win the game. And
Yeah.
now usually, like we were saying, the haunt happens on like rounds 5 or 6 or even later than that, but we had a trigger on round 3.
Yeah, so I really liked that game. Like when we've because I won it in a raffle like years ago, and it sits on my shelf and shrink still because I've heard that the game it can be kind of broken. It seems like from everything that I've read and my one experience playing it now, it does seem like it's like a Cabin in the Woods, the game, where there's like a million and one horror tropes, and it's just kind of what's it gonna be? What horror trope are we going with? And ours, oddly enough, didn't end up being really much of a horror trope.
No,
But
it was an
It
expansion.
was part of the expansion, though, so I was really
Yeah.
excited.
yeah, so I also like worried, like I wasn't sure where I would want to land. Like, do I want to? I worried about like, okay, if I end up being the betrayer, what like am I going? Is there going to be something obtuse about the game that I'm not going to understand? Like, because I've heard that there's problems with the game, so I was
Yeah.
genuinely worried that I might screw it up and not know what I'm reading or something. But I'm glad that I ended up being it was kind of a reverse betrayer.
Yeah.
Like I
hadn't
took
seen
the
anything
betrayer
like that.
book, but it said
It turned into
it was like a semi co-op almost.
we
But-
were all against each other.
each other.
Yeah, all of you guys were against each other and trying to work with me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which I'm glad that if I was going to be the betrayer on my first time playing, it was a thing like that where there wasn't some crucial mistake that I could make. Like, it's a little bit less interesting, to be honest. That I mean, there's as soon as it was that scenario, I couldn't lose. There was no
Yeah,
version
for
that I
sure.
could lose. Like I won essentially. Um, that takes away a little bit of it, but I think that's kind of an ideal situation for someone if the first time they play they're going to be the betrayer. It was a pretty low risk betrayer to be,
Definitely.
and it ended up being like really fun. It just kind of got chaotic because uh, also with it being my first time, I don't know what you guys are reading. I don't
Right.
even have like
That's
like
what
a
I like
frame.
about it. I mean, it's a
Well,
weird game. And
see,
it's an
you've at least
adventure.
got the context of previous plays, so I'm sure you've been on both
Yeah.
sides of it, so you've got an idea. I had no clue what you guys were reading. Like, as far as I knew, you guys were reading something that had nothing to do with it. Like, I literally didn't even know if we were going to be reading in the same story. Once you guys sort of started talking about things, I was like, okay, so they know what they are. They know who they
Yeah.
are. They know who
And I
I
can see
am.
why that
Okay.
one would be really confusing anyway. Like, you might not have had any idea what we were trying to do based on kind of the story behind it.
Well,
Yeah.
Right.
as soon as you guys started going, it seemed pretty apparent that you guys were trying. If anything, I think that I was actually trying to do what you guys were doing. Like, I may
Yeah.
have misread, and I didn't necessarily need to do that.
Yeah.
But
Well, it was tricky because, like, as we read, Zach thought he had to do one thing. I thought one person,
yeah.
like, I was trying to go around and kill everybody.
He was just beating the shit out of
Yeah.
everybody.
yeah, so it was definitely kind of chaotic. But it became pretty quickly apparent that we were more or less on the same page. We were definitely reading the same book.
Yeah.
We were probably in the same chapter, maybe not on the same page. But
Yeah.
I really was. I was like going, okay, so do they know that this is what they are? Do they know that this is what I am? I don't know. And then it came together better than I really expected it. And while we were sitting there, I may have waited until we were cleaning up the game, but I got on the Amazon sale and ordered Betrayal at Baldur's Gate for like $23 because I've heard that one. I've heard that they cleaned up the rules. You know, again, I have Betrayal at House on the Hill on my shelf in shrink that I could just open up, but I've heard that
We
it
should
can be
talk
so
about,
wonky.
We should talk about either a trade or me purchasing from you.
Okay.
So I can tell, because this is the one game on my shelf, and we still couldn't decide on Friday. Like, I'm 95%
Half of the components seemed like they
sure.
weren't legitimate, and the other half
Yeah.
seemed like they were.
They're
Like, I'm
weird.
95% sure that it is a counterfeit. But the game itself doesn't have the best components, so I don't really know.
Yeah,
nothing else,
I'd be
somebody
curious about it.
Did a
but-
really good job painting yours.
But yeah, I decided that I was like, all right, so Baldur's Gate. My wife loves D&D. That's a theme that she'll get into a little bit better, I think.
Yeah.
Rather than the horror, and I think this is the kind of game that she'll dig. And the next day, I was telling her about it, and she was like, "So it's a different game, like every time. Like you don't even know what it's gonna, and you don't know what the." That sounds great. And I was like, "Sweet," because I ordered it
Right
with you
on.
in mind, like while it was on sale. You know, like I
Yeah.
mean, it was only like $23, so it was.
Yeah.
It was
It's
a
way
steal
worth
anyways.
It seems great. It doesn't seem, that game is not deep. It's not super deep.
No.
But it's always fun. Even the games that I've played where it's broken, and by broken I mean literally depending on the house is built and depending on the haunt, sometimes you can't do what you're required. And I
Right.
wouldn't expect that to be able to come out in testing. Like they couldn't account for that because there's so many stories and
Right. Different
Right.
elements to the game.
so it's always fun. It's always worth some laughs.
That
So-
definitely feels like a game that could only be enhanced by a couple of drinks. You
For
know,
sure.
Just like get a little bit saucy and start like arguing. No, you're doing the thing, guy.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know?
So
I'm in for
But
that.
I was really really happy with Betrayal. I was genuinely
That's good.
surprised with how much I enjoyed it.
and I got so Saturday, me and my older kids were hanging out and talking about games, and they mentioned a game that they had when they were kids that I keep forgetting to order. So I was like, I'm going to order it. It got here because we have Amazon locally. It got here the next day, Sunday. So we played 13 Dead End Drive. I don't know if you guys remember that.
I've never played it. I've seen it, but I haven't.
Yeah, I know I've seen it. I don't think I ever played it, though.
So we...
I want to say maybe my cousins had
it's
it
very
growing up.
awkward. So in my previous career life, I was so busy all the time. My kids would want to play games and I was too worn out. And so like...
Wow, how's that going now?
Well, it's the opposite.
I was gonna say, is it flipped?
So it was really fun
So
to get
for
this
you,
game.
it's karma that they go, I don't want to play, Dad. I don't want to play your game.
So it was
I can
fun to get a
appreciate
game
that.
they had as kids, and then we replayed it. It's pretty fun. It's it's pretty light, but it's a weird kind of hidden identity game because you have cards in front of you of who you are, and everybody controls everybody's little pawns. Like you get to move them and you try to kill them unless it's you, and there's a picture on the wall, and whoever's picture's shown, if that person can get out when that picture's shown, then they inherit the money. So you're like kind of trying to keep your people secret at the same time move towards the door. It's pretty fun.
Sounds cool. And I know that the board is like a 3-dimensional house setup, which is always appealing to me.
Yeah. So, and
The
then I did play some Wingspan.
Of course.
Ding.
That's good. I'm glad you and your wife worked that out, whatever you guys were going through last week. We also played my first play of Dead of Winter, which is a game that's like always kind of been on the periphery for me. I still I don't think that it's a game that I need to own, but it was a game that I really wasn't sure about. I love zombies. I was curious about it that way, but the Crossroads deck, I really wasn't so sure on it, and hearing that there could be like the hidden traitor and stuff like that, I was always a little bit leery, and I've heard from certain like podcasts or whatever reviews that it can run kind of long and it can feel like a slog, and it can feel like you're doing a lot of chores, and I could see that being the case.
Yeah.
We played a short scenario. I honestly don't know that I would want to play a long scenario. But it was fun. Like not having a betrayer and it or traitor or whatever, and it seeming like, I mean, after like the first 2 rounds, I was like, I don't think we have one, because we weren't coming up with anything that was negative, and we were really kind of knocking out the
main goal,
the goals and the requirements and stuff like that. Yeah, I enjoyed it. It was cool. Like, I certainly wouldn't be opposed to playing it again, but I don't necessarily see me suggesting it either, unless someone is talking and something that they say makes me go, oh, you need to try Dead of Winter. Then I might say, hey, who's got it? Let's bring it over.
Yeah.
But yeah, I had a lot of fun with it.
I think my favorite part about that was the whole storyline with Brandon. Zach Brandon.
Yeah, that was great. So with the Crossroads cards, there's like
you draw one.
Essentially, you draw it, and there's an if then, you know. So if, and a lot of them, it's if this character is in play, if the person whose turn it is controlling this character. Sometimes it's you just draw it and you go, I don't know. And what that is if someone uses this certain thing or goes to this certain area this turn, then there's an effect.
Right.
So Zach draws up a thing that's like, if Brandon is in play, and he starts looking around, he's like, are you Brandon? Do you have Brandon? Who's got Brandon? Where's Brandon? I look over because Zach is next to me, and I go, yeah, Brandon's in play. You've got Brandon. That's Brandon right there. And he was like, oh. And then, like, I want to say that, what was it? He, like, the scenario or the little story piece from that was that he was, like, losing his mind and acting like a crazy person.
He was going nuts in the grocery store looking at the deer corpse on the counter.
Yeah. So, like, he was going, he couldn't find himself. Is Brandon around? I don't know. I mean, it's like me going, hey, have any of you guys seen Kenneth? Where's Kenneth at? I don't know where Kenneth is. there's a mess over here. There's deer everywhere and there's fingernail clippings around. And we need to, like, what are we doing? We got to clean this up. What's going on? Have you seen the deer court and the fingernails? And why isn't this thing cleaned up? It was like, oh, yeah, so we got to knock out Brandon because he's nuts. He doesn't even know who he is. It created a really fun, like, off the pages, off the board story with our little game. And I could see a lot of that happening.
What was funny is it actually bled into our Betrayal game too a little bit, the whole Brandon moment.
Yeah, that was really cool. And I could definitely see where a game like Dead of Winter would create a lot of those, off the page stories
for sure
on the table.
I think that's some of the appeal of it. I mean, it's an okay game. I think we'll have this in a future podcast about that it factor. For some reason, Dead of Winter is right there with Terraforming Mars with me. Like, I know it's a great game. For some reason, it just doesn't register.
I don't quite feel like it's a great game. I think there's a ton of potential, and having played it now, I'm actually kind of bummed that, by all accounts, Gen 7 is terrible.
Yeah.
Because that's the second game that they've used that Crossroads system, and I think the Crossroads system is, I mean, it's obviously the most compelling thing. In my opinion. But I would like to see, I don't know, something else maybe built around that Crossroads system.
Yeah, I love that element of the game.
But yeah, I've heard that Gen 7 was a turd, but I really hope that they don't give up on that Crossroads system. I'd like to see an implementation somewhere that I actually want to own, because I would like to own a Crossroads game. I'm not quite sure if I need to own Dead of Winter.
Yeah.
Unless I see it for a crazy good deal, in which case I might just go, well, whatever, man, it's worth it.
Kind of what happened with the first Martians game. I found it for $9, and I've heard it's, a rough game as far as the rules go, and some people don't really like it. It's damn near impossible, but I just couldn't pass it up. It's also been compared to like a space version of Robinson Crusoe, which again I haven't played that yet either, but I own both, so once I get one played, maybe I'll give the other one a shot.
Yeah, there you go. Before we jump into like our main topic, because I feel like that's where we're about to go. I saw that look in your eye. I saw the little sparkle. There's a game that hit Kickstarter today called, let me scroll back up to the top. Where is it? Chronicles of Drunagor. This game looks so cool. Like, it's a dungeon crawly fantasy game, but it's got 3D terrain. But the way that 3D terrain is made is there's little trays made by Game Trays with a Z, and you have like little tiles, like, in Zombicide or Betrayal, whatever, like little room tiles that go on top of these, and they're at different elevations, which affects your abilities and like advantage and stuff like that. And there's also what's called a folding door system. So as you move on to a new tile, they have a whole bunch of these folded, like think a pamphlet, just any pamphlet that you can think of.
Yeah.
That thing where it's a trifold, and you open it up and it reveals what your next tile is going to be and the way to put it and the way to set it up. So there's however many of those folded doors that go with your adventure, so you don't quite know what's going to come up next. It's not just a set scenario.
That's cool.
I'm really looking at it. I mean, it's a big mini heavy dungeon crawly type of game, but the price tag seems pretty reasonable to me, where the base pledge is the standard $99 for just about any game of that type on Kickstarter.
Yeah.
But the all-in with a couple of expansions that look like they add a couple of heroes and a big boss monster and some tiles and stuff. The big all-in package is only $170, and I feel like that's a really, really a pretty sweet spot. There's been a few of these kind of dungeon crawly type of games lately. Eon Trespass. There's that. There was another one. Let me find it. I think it's active still. Runal Yold, which looks cool.
Yeah.
There's always these dungeon crawly type of games, and it seems like they always end up getting really expensive and kind of following the CMON model, where it's like yeah, you know, the base game is $100 because they're always $100. But if you really want the full experience, it's going to be like 450. And so, I mean, there's always the possibility that they'll add more add-ons to this and jack up the price. But for it looking like an all-in is 170, it's really caught my eye, and I
That
wouldn't be
seems
surprised
reasonable.
if I jump in on that.
But it seems like it's got a unique thing to it. Hopefully,
it's
it's not
got-
just another gimmick. But that
It's
folding
got
door
two
seems
mechanics that are kind of interesting to me because that's something like the 3D space is rarely utilized in board games for being a 3D medium where you're grabbing things and you're moving them around. I feel like the third dimension of play where you've got elevation is so rarely used. It's cool to see a dungeon crawler using that and in a way that makes sense. You know, if you've got the high ground, you've got advantage for attacking.
cool. Right.
You know, that sort of stuff.
Seems cool. Speaking of Kickstarters, before we move on, did you guys notice that Salty Dogs is really close to actually backing?
Did it? Is it funding?
It's at 96% right now with 14 hours to go.
I hope it does, man.
They've
That
dropped
game's-
the price on a bunch of things too, so
Oh, maybe I need to revisit that one.
yeah,
'Cause
check it
I-
out. They've
I
got a
felt
couple
like-
of cool things. I think they dropped the the base pledge to like $26, and then you got to deal with shipping, but seems pretty reasonable actually.
Yeah, I felt like that was the biggest problem to me was that the pledges just didn't seem to quite match what my experience was with the gameplay.
Right.
Good game, for sure, but not quite what they were asking, in my opinion. So
Yeah, they've dropped
but
it all
it's-
quite a bit.
I'm happy to see that it's still that it's doing well. I would
Yeah.
like to see it fund, and I hope that it, you know, I hope that they can maybe get some aftermarket, spread the word, or you know that it gets that like cult hit type of thing and gets
Right.
some buzz, and maybe a publisher will pick it up and mass produce it and bring it out there because I think that it's a game that, you know, you find the right price point and you get it into game stores, I think it would sell. I think it could be a really easy one to get people playing.
Yeah, and there's not a ton of great pirate-themed games out there, so having another decent one on the shelf doesn't hurt.
Yeah, and the pirate themed games that I know of that are good are not light card games
No.
that you could just sort of pull out of your
No.
backpack and throw down on a picnic table, you know?
Well, I think
This
it's
is
a
true.
nice, light type of card game that's not. And I know this might bother people when I say this, but not like exploding kittens or Cards Against Humanity. There's more strategy to it as far as what you're trying to do.
You mean there
game.
is strategy?
Yeah,
to
there's
it.
any strategy to it?
Sure.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, speaking of strategy, why don't we find out our strategy of getting these games off of our shelves of shame? So,
Okay, so you've had some really good transitions, and I've got to say, I don't feel like that was your best work. It was a bit of a reach. Like you got there and it worked, but I feel like it was a bit of a reach.
hey, they can't all be winners.
Oh,
What
you
is,
got
what is
there.
a
It's
shelf
all
of
good.
shame?
Yeah, so for those who might be newer to the hobby, what exactly is a shelf of shame?
Well,
Ken's
if we want to be
shelf.
positive, we can call it a shelf of opportunity.
Oh, there you go.
You know what? We should go with that.
Yeah.
I honestly, I feel like a year ago, I was building up my shelf of opportunity, and it has become a shelf of shame. So the shelf of shame or shelf of opportunity is the games that you own that you have not played. So, the ideal would be that, with any game that you get, you come running home like a child. For whatever reason, you don't drive to the game store, holding the game, arms fully extended straight out in front of you, just raving like a lunatic running down the street because you cannot wait to get home. Open this thing, immediately read through the rule books. While you're reading through the rule book, you're setting everything up, and you immediately play the game. That's living in a perfect world. As soon as you get home, it hits the table, you play it, and you know that you love it.
I laugh because when I first started, we'll say collecting because it's turned into that.
Yeah.
I always laughed at like how could people have games on their shelf that they don't play? That is so
Yeah.
weird. Why would you do that? You would Why would you not buy a game and then play to see if you like it?
Why would you not go running home with arms outstretched
Yeah.
in front of you, holding the game, ranting and raving like a lunatic, and immediately play it as soon as you walk through the door?
Yes.
Yeah.
And I still fight against this shelf of shame, but I
Yeah.
have a decent sized one. So
Well, what
it happens.
causes the existence of this shelf?
So where mine started, like I said, mine started as a shelf of opportunity. So a little over a year ago, but almost a year and a half ago, my work schedule picked up a lot. I started working, and I was also traveling. So
Yeah.
I was spending 2 weeks at home, 2 weeks at home, and then 2 weeks in the Bay Area of California working and making good money and making per diem, and the company was taking care of, most of the incidentals and stuff. So I was making a little extra bank. And then I obviously just didn't have time, and I was working a lot of overtime. And then once the California thing kind of tapered down, then I came back home and I was working a lot of overtime from January until September. I was pretty much working 60 hours a week this year.
Yeah.
So I was kind of going, well, I'm making, I'm making all of my regular 40 hours money, and then I'm making another 20 hours at time and a half. I've got a lot of extra, if that's an actual thing. I have extra money. So I was like, all right, I don't have time to play them now, but I have the money to buy games.
Sure.
So I can buy games because eventually my work schedule will mellow out. And I started to question it after a while, but it has mellowed out. And now I'm getting some of those games to the table. But the idea was stock up on the games while I've got the money, and especially where I don't have the time, just stock up on the games. And then when I have the time, I won't have the money and I won't have to spend it, and I'll have the games to play. Ultimately, my work schedule went way, like the overtime and the extra money went way longer than I had expected. And now, like, I did some rough count stats today, and it's like my wife kind of she got home while I was making little tick marks into different categories on a piece of paper, and she goes, "Wow, babe, well, at least they're close." I was like, oh, I know, right? This is but yeah, that's how my shelf of shame was built. Is it genuinely started as a shelf of opportunity. And since my work schedule has mellowed out and we're recording a podcast, we are dedicating some time, and I can make it to game night, and I can host game nights and all of that stuff. I am getting through some of my backlog.
Yeah.
I also still buy games, not as frequently, but I'm still adding to it a little bit. But
Sure.
At this point, I think that I'm playing more of my games than I am adding to it for the last month or two. And if I can continue that pattern, I feel like it'll come back around, and it'll reestablish that shelf of opportunity that I would like it to be.
You're chipping away at a healthy pace.
Yeah.
Nice.
For me, it's all about, I love, I don't know if bargain hunting is the right word, but I love
it is
finding deals, either used copies of games,
Yeah.
anything on a good deal. If there's a sale on a game, like I have a really hard time passing up, like Contagion, Pandemic, like that. I had no intentions of buying that game, but it was $10 on Amazon. I gotta get it. It's kind of a problem. But I've also been okay this week looking at some things, being like, you know what? I'm a collector, and I have some games that I collect. When I talk more about specific games, like, and I feel okay with that. Like, I used to collect other things, like I collect games. The problem with it is I have my game room, and I have my 5x5 Kallax, and then I have my other shelves, and like it is taking over my fireplace. Like, I have games all over in that room now, and it is also our family room. So my wife's starting to see we need more shelves.
Yeah, my wife
So-
actually has recently said that, the next time that I've got a little extra spending money and I'm thinking about buying a couple of games or whatever, I should probably look at getting another Kallax because all of
Yeah.
mine is in my dining room, as well as my computer desk and my 2 kennels for my dogs and my, dining room table, and it is crowded. And it's just getting more crowded because I'm stacking shit on the floor in front of my game shelves.
Yeah.
And it's not like bad, but it would be really nice to get another shelf in there. And we've kind of looked at it, and I think we can move some stuff around and get another shelf in
Yeah,
there.
I've noticed too that when I have stacks around, it sounds funny. Like I have stacks around of games. Kallax is really nice because before I got the Kallax, it was like, I had this closet and this closet and this shelf. Like my games tend to get more play when they're in front. And it's not like
Straight up,
specific games.
that's
It's
the
like I can
shitty
look and
thing.
see, I can see all of these games. What about this one I haven't played for a while?
That's the shittiest thing about my games stacking up in front of my game shelves is that anything on the bottom shelf, you already don't necessarily look at the bottom shelf by nature. There's a reason that they refer to like discount or bargain items or like cheaply made stuff as bottom shelf. It's because
Right.
that's where the cheap, shitty stuff goes. And that's not really the case. That's not how I've organized my game shelves. It may be how I reorganize them whenever that ends up happening, is with that in mind. But you already are predisposed to not necessarily look down as much as you look straight forward. And adding any sort of obstruction, like, another pile of other games,
Yeah.
makes it so the ones behind it, they never stood a chance. Like, I think that the fact that it's on a bottom shelf and there is something in front of it, so I don't clearly see it, I think that's the only reason that I haven't played Spirit Island yet. That's got to be it, because I keep wanting to play it. I feel like I've mentioned that I want to play that for the last like 3 episodes, and it keeps not happening. And I know exactly where it is. It's on the left shelf, bottom row, second one over, and it's like half obstructed by a pile of board games.
Yeah.
And
I laugh because I specifically have my favorite, or one of my favorite, but probably my favorite, my wife's favorite, and my daughter's favorite right in the middle. Like it was on purpose. Like,
yeah. Oh yeah.
right here, we're sticking it.
See, I originally organized mine more by theme, I think. And I kind of did put some of my favorite stuff toward the top in the middle. But as the space has become more and more crowded and now is overflowing past my shelves, I've had to like, okay, well, this fits with this theme, but it's the perfect shape. It's going to fit better over here, and this one will fit there better. And then there's also like, all right, this game, I'll turn it sideways so I can see the entire front cover and just push everything behind it back a little bit, So it's become like total chaos.
Yeah.
But, the mythical game room that I one day may or may not have, I will have it better organized, and I'll have a little bit more method to the madness.
Yeah.
It's hard to keep it organized because I keep adding to my shelf of shame, and so it's hard to figure out.
For me, I started collecting shortly after the Dice Masters days, and I did the same thing that you did, Russ, in that as soon as I saw a deal, I was like, oh, I can't let somebody else have that for $20. That's a $60 game, and it's in shrink. I gotta have it for myself, and then I let it sit on the shelf I've still got stuff that I bought in 2014 that I just have never played, but I'd love to eventually. But it's easy for that shelf of shame to grow when you find a killer deal. And, you've got other stuff that kind of just takes precedence right now.
Especially if it's something that you've either heard about or you had interest in. And it's like, ooh, like.
Or even if it's a game that you've never heard about, but the theme is just it hits the right spot
Yeah.
and it's the right price. It's super easy to just commit to something
It's
that's
really
not
hard.
expensive.
So many good reasons to buy a game. There's so many good reasons to buy a
I'm
game.
not gonna lie, it's really hard to pass up any game under $10.
Sure.
And only reason I would is if the box is too big for a possible placement if it's not good. Because I am terrible at culling my collection, like terrible. Because I'm like, oh, if I'm on the right time, the right day, the right group, that might get played, which is probably never going to happen in some of my games. But unless it was called Galactic Strike Force, I have not just like gotten rid of it. The only game I ever had in my collection that literally was removed only for storage space, and I gave it away.
Yeah, I've yet to actually cull my collection, which honestly it just like doesn't occur to me.
That's a good thing, because I'd probably
kind of
end up with some of them like I did with Tyler's.
Yeah,
True.
well, I've ended up with some of Tyler's too. So
Yeah.
I
I appreciate it. Help
but
me
like-
get shit taken care of.
like that's a I don't know neuroses that is evident throughout other parts of my life. I was one of those guys with like the 500 disc binder of CDs in my car.
Yeah.
Back in the dark ages, back in the 1900s when we had to have physical media for music.
Yeah.
And now I am the guy who has like almost a full terabyte of music on my computer, which is like I could hit play on my iTunes and not hear the same song for I think over a year.
Yeah.
And
you
that
and
is
me both.
like I know that I'm never going to listen to all of that realistically. I mean, it's like an unclimbable mountain, but at least with that, it's not taking up physical space. You know, that's just
Sure.
digital files. You know, but like I have a big movie collection. I have a lot of video games. Like I like having that stuff, and a lot of it for me is it's not that I look at it and I go, one day I'm going to play through Red Dead Redemption again, or I'm going to play Zombies with the 3 exclamation points again, because realistically, like I know I'm not, there's too many other good video games. I'm not going to jump back to Red Dead.
Yeah, but what do you do with it? You take it to GameStop and get 50 cents for it, or it's better on your shelf, which is why I have all those video games.
Well, that's like with video games, it's a lot of times I'll look at it and I go, I remember that. That was great.
Yeah.
You know, like,
Yeah.
and
It's got a nostalgia factor.
yeah, like it's one of those things that it's like, I'll never not own. I have no plan of ever not owning Red Dead Redemption because I loved that game.
Yeah.
Where, and like same thing with like each of the Borderlands games. I've loved them. I will own those games forever. Bloodborne, I will own that, you know, and whether I play it or not, it's got to be there. I need it on my shelf. It makes me happy. It's like, it's my trophy is owning it and looking back on it and thinking of that
Right.
fond memory. With board games, I've got sort of the same thing with that Zombies game. I mean, that is the game that got me into hobby board gaming, even if it was years after getting that I really got into the hobby. But that one was like the first game that kind of opened my eyes to more than Life and Monopoly and stuff like that. And for a while there, I played that game a lot. Like, I would say that, you know, if I was tracking my plays back then, that's probably like, and I doubt that it's even close. That's probably the game that I've played the most, because me and my buddies, for a while, it was like a weekend thing. We would just get tore back drunk playing zombie game, and we like had a bunch of house rules. We played a totally different game than what was written. Everyone knew how to play. It, like, there was times where we had like 9 or 10 dudes. We played it, I want to say one time, for like 18 hours straight.
Oh, jeez.
And a lot of that is because we changed the rules to make it
Right.
last longer. We enjoyed the thing of it. You know, it was our
Definitely.
version of getting together on Sunday and watching football. It was
Sure.
our version of gathering around and playing poker or playing volleyball or joining
Yeah.
a softball team or whatever. We would drink and play Zombies. You know, so I have zero desire to play it, but I also don't want to get rid of it because I
Right.
look at it and it makes me happy.
Well, speaking of that, are there any games on your shelf of shame that you feel like you may never play, but you also might never get rid of? I mean, obviously, you both
Yes.
said that you have a hard time culling anything. I'm not in that camp so much.
Yes, because the odds are that I will play it, but I have games on my shelf that are there as collection pieces. There are two things that I've started to collect. First is Risk games. I love Risk, probably because it was the one strategy game I remember playing as a kid. Like Monopoly and stuff I played as a kid, but Risk I remember playing. Strategy wise, and I love what really kicked it off is I love Star Wars Risk. Like, it's a 2-player. It's not really Risk, but it's called Star Wars Risk, and it's awesome. So, I've started to look at the more of the different types at like thrift stores, right? Pick them up for $1 or $2.
Yeah.
So some of those I assume I'll play. I don't know if I will for sure. But the other thing is I collect Eric Lang games. He's my favorite designer. He has some weird, obscure games, right? That when I buy, I plan on playing. But, Trains and Stations isn't the top of my list to get to the table. So I hope to get it to the table at some point.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it's a company I don't love, and it's a theme that doesn't attract me.
Do you need a copy of the Lord of the Rings dice building game?
Is that Eric Lang?
Yeah.
I do.
It's dice building, man. Of course it's Eric Lang. Who else builds dice? No one.
I do. He has a lot of weird,
I
obscure
know.
games. So, like, when we're talking about organization, the top of my shelf is like 5 across Eric Lang games. And now I'm bleeding out to like other areas. So,
You just needed Kalax of Lang.
probably, I think I could fill a pretty good one, like a 2x4 at least.
Yeah.
Yeah, see, I don't have any games that I look at and I go, that's never going to get played, but I have it because I want it to have it. I do, on the other hand, have games that I look at and I go, I really don't know if that's ever going to get played. I want to, but it's like, or even like I wanted to, like, so
Sure.
when I first started like solo gaming, I heard so many people were ranting and raving about how great Mage Knight is.
Yeah.
So I got it at like used. I got a good deal on it. I got Mage Knight and I tried it once and I was like, holy upkeep. There's got to be something better out there, and I found better solo games. And I think of Mage Knight, and I still hear that it's great, and I think about it, but I look at it and I go, I don't know that I really.
That's always one I'm surprised you
that.
haven't culled out of your collection.
I've thought about it, and honestly, like there's also the fact that to cull the things out of your collection takes an amount of time.
Yeah.
And any amount of time is at a premium for me. I'm getting to where it's not quite that way, but it for the last year it has been. Like I literally have felt like for almost a year, for a year plus now, that I literally have to account for every waking moment and try to maximize every one of them that I'm not at work.
Yeah.
And it's been difficult. And Mage Knight would probably be about the first game that I would get rid of, just because when I played it, I was like, yeah, I don't love it. I look at it and I just don't care.
Yeah.
It just doesn't really do much for me. There's also like, there's games that I really want to play that I think other people want to play, but there's like whether it be a time commitment or it's rules heavy or, possibly the theme or something about it that I go, I don't know if I'm going to be able to get this on the table with the group that I play with.
Yeah.
What springs to mind is Dominant Species.
I want to play that.
I want to play that too, but I've also heard that's one that you want to play at a higher player count. And it's like, okay, so we need to get, Game of Thrones, high player count.
We are playing that one.
Well, the problem is high player count, fairly dense rules, long time commitment. Those are like the 3 hardest things, and when you put them all into one game, it gets really hard to get it to the table.
Play that one so bad.
Is that show over?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're done. Okay, I just wanted to make sure it was completed before I started.
Yeah. If I
I
had
have a hard
to-
time being patient and waiting for shit. So what if I'm waiting for another season? I usually don't pick it back up, even if it's like the hot thing. That's how The Walking Dead went for me. I went with the first season, watched it, and then it took too long. I had other shit going on. So, but yeah.
I Space Empires 4X is another one that I have that I want to play, but it's okay, I look at Space Empires 4X and then I just look a little bit above that and there's Twilight Imperium 4 and it's like, okay, if we're gonna play a big epic space game, which one are we really gonna go for? Like old reliable that we love, or the box of cardboard that is Space Empires? And I want to play Space Empires, and it's got some really cool, unique mechanics that I look at it and I go, like, so Twilight Imperium is like the epic game. Eclipse is the like the more I kind of want to say just more strategy game. It's
Yeah.
like the more strategic game, and then Space Empires, from what I understand, is more tactical. Like it's not that overarching strategy of like, here's my plan for the game. It's here's what I'm going to do this turn, and I'm going to try this. And there's an amount of deception where you don't know the size of the fleets. Like fleets are placed face down, so you see that something's coming at you, but you don't know if it's one little ship or like an entire death squad of destroyers or whatever. And that's really cool. I haven't played it yet, and it's hard to work another game that fits into the same category into it. Like how
Right.
many zombie dungeon crawlers are you going to play once you find, for me, Zombicide Black Plague? I like that game.
Yeah.
Right.
Why would I go for zombies again? Why would I go for any other bash zombies over the head game when I have found the one that I like? So there's games that I want to play that it's a little bit harder just
Yeah.
because they compete with other things or they have that commitment. But I have yet to buy a game just to have it in my collection and own it. Although I have been thinking about one, and it's hilarious. Like it would just be because it's hilarious, and the idea of owning it almost sounds obnoxious to me. Care to guess?
Monopoly Socialism.
No, that's not even funny. That's just sad. No, man, the Campaign for North Africa. If I
yes,
actually
yeah.
saw a copy
Oh,
of that,
yeah.
I think I would buy it because that game is ridiculous. And I like
Yeah.
ridiculous things. There's a reason that I've bought so much Cthulhu Wars shit.
Yeah.
You know?
So,
Did
so
you see how much demo has of that now?
Uh-uh.
Yeah, they have.
which Cthulhu?
Cthulhu
Wars?
I noticed that they've got a bunch of stuff
They've
there.
got a bunch of it. So sorry to sidetrack.
Do they
but
have
yeah,
the base game?
I don't know. I didn't see that, but you don't need it. You got God's War stuff you need to work on.
Yeah, I did notice that they've got a few more copies of the Gods War.
Yeah, they have, like,
I mean,
3.
if you were local and you're looking for a game like Cthulhu Wars, the price that they have the God's War is pretty silly.
I've honestly thought about making a speculative purchase and just holding on to it for a year until it's hard to find and just selling it.
I mean, it's hard to find now, and then the expansions are a nightmare to find. That's what I worry about.
Yeah,
If he doesn't do more print runs,
yeah.
like I don't think I'll ever own expansions.
Well, they just posted something about the Dragons pack on Instagram. They're promoting it still, so it's still on their radar as far as what they're doing.
They promote it, but I go to the page to buy it, and it's not even there on their website. It's sold out. Like everything's sold out.
It's hot.
I really enjoy it. If you like Cthulhu Wars, but so what do you do when you have a game on your shelf of shame? Like I am that little kid. Like when I run home with a game, I at least open it and at least pop it and look at it a little bit. But like I go to Zach's house and he's got
I did that for a long
it's a
time.
game store, man.
Yeah,
It is all in shrink.
I did that for a long time where I'd get home and I'd open it up and I'd punch it and there's like a certain satisfaction of opening a game, punching it, organizing
New game
it.
smell, man. New
putting
game
it all
smell's
back,
a real thing.
and being like, all right, this game is ready. Like, I may not have played it yet, but I could pull that off, and all the bits are in different baggies, and or open that first page of the player handbook, and you look at the setup, and you go, okay, so all of these go to this one character. I'm going to organize that so I can just toss out a bag to each character and be ready to go. There is a certain satisfaction in that, and that's nice, and I enjoy doing that. Back when I played Dice Masters, I was the guy that would organize all my cards like alphabetically. I would sleeve them. I'd color code the sleeves by sets, and then I would organize all the dice into like little tackle box type trays. I enjoyed that process, and I enjoy the organization and checking out the little bits and opening my shiny new toy.
Yeah.
I got away from that for a while because, again, I basically had to account for every waking moment that I wasn't at work, and I had to try and maximize it. And at a certain point, pulling cellophane off of cardboard is not the best way for me to spend a half hour. And especially when I would do things like go, hey, this game's on sale on Miniature Market for like $20. All I need to do is figure out another 80 real quick to get free shipping on my $20 game, and then I'd spend $100 and I'd have 7 games show up, and it's like, all right, those all came in one package, and I'm not going to spend the next 3 hours organizing them because I have literally everything else to do. So I got to where I've got a lot of cellophane on my shelves, but I have started cracking into some of my cellophane.
So numbers now. How many are you on your shelf of shame, Tyler?
Well, the most recent count that I had, it was at 23.
Whew.
Oh man!
I am.
Oh no!
Okay, so
This sounds like it'll be fun.
So I actively work against my shelf of shame. I know I purchase at a high rate, but I will work my tail off to get it to the table.
I think you get more hours of play per week than possibly me and Tyler combined.
Yeah, I could see that.
So I will work really hard to get it off there because I'm like, I bought this. I want to try it. Unless it's like Trains and Stations, and it's like, I want to try it at some point, and then I'll pull it out and I start to look at it. I'm like, let's play something else. I am only at 12. There's there's 2 expansions that I could have added to that, but I didn't count expansions.
Yeah, and I didn't count expansions.
Then I have 4 games that I own that I have played others, but I haven't played mine. Like Rising Sun, I have it. I haven't played my copy.
Right.
Which is really weird because I've had
I didn't
almost
even
a
count
year.
for that filter. Like I counted those games in games that I've played. Even like for my account, Betrayal is in the games that is not on my shelf of shame, even though mine is literally in shrink on my shelf still.
So I don't think I would count those ones, but they're ones that I'm like Rising Sun. I'm like, I want to play that, but it doesn't linger like something would on my shelf of shame. So like when I say shelf of shame, like I have a guilt that I've spent money on this and I haven't played it yet.
Right.
Unless it's a collection piece, like I have a few games. So I can distinct that in my mind, but I'm guessing that mine and Tyler's combined is like a third of yours.
That's actually really close. That's like really close. So what I did was I pulled up my little BGG app that has all of my games, and it's also got expansions, and I didn't count expansions either way. I only counted base game, but I also I counted, Betrayal at House on the Hill goes in one spot, Betrayal at Baldur's Gate goes in another spot. Codenames and whatever expansions goes in one spot, but Codenames Marvel goes in another spot, But the expansions are just an extension of the game. The literally 10 different categories of Eon's End that I have, that's one game. That's Eon's End.
Yeah.
And I have played the shit out of it. I then lumped everything that I had on my app into 3 different categories. I've got the games that I've played, or that I own that I've played, the games that I own that I haven't played, And then I also just kind of threw in the games that I don't own that I have played. So like your games and Tyler's games and Kevin's games that I don't own. Um, so the games that I have played that are mine is 88. And the games that I've played that I don't own is 33. I was actually kind of surprised at how low that number was. But looking at it, a lot of that is the thing where it would be on my shelf of shame if I hadn't played someone else's copy. So there's a fair bit that the playing unowned games fed the played category.
So how many new games have you played, let's just say this year?
I don't know. I could look that up really quick, but my shelf of shame is currently sitting at 75 games.
Oh, wow.
It is almost half of my collection. And what's crazy is so like on the Board Game Geek app that I was using, it has them listed alphabetically and there's a break between letters. And like at B they were tied, at like M they were tied, and there was times where, you know, at the end of like P, the shelf of shame was winning. And then at the end of R, you know, the shelf of not shame had taken the lead back. It was real slugfest. It was dramatic writing it out. And my wife came in and they were like dead even. She was like, "So what you doing?" I was like, I'm just tallying up the games that I've played on the shelf and the games that I haven't, and also games that I don't own that I've played." And she was like, "Babe, I mean, I guess they're like close to even, and it's not like all games that you haven't played." I was like, "Yeah, see, you know, you were there. I didn't have time to play games, and I bought games." And a part of that also is like I like buying stuff. I've always been, and I think that's you know, a symptom of growing up like
Right.
poor, like low middle class at best.
Yeah.
And probably below middle class for most of my childhood.
Yeah. Probably some of my collecting issues as
So
well. A little hoarding.
And I've always like enjoyed spending money.
Yeah.
I like to buy things.
Yeah.
You know, I like to get a thing, and especially if it's something that like, yay, I'm going to enjoy this. Like, I don't love running
Sure.
out and buying a shovel to dig a hole in my backyard, you know? But at the same time, like, if I have to go out and buy a shovel to dig a hole in my backyard, I'm going to try and find a pretty dope shovel, you know, because that's the way that I am.
Sure.
So every now and then I wouldn't quite say that I have like an addictive behavior that way, but there are times that I'm like, man, today sucked. I think I'm going to buy me a board game. You know, and
It's an
just
addictive behavior for me. I can own it.
Yeah, like it's borderline. It's close. Like it could easily. Like I mean, I do feel like that you know, my spending habits, and it goes beyond just board games, but I do feel like my spending habits are like a couple month run of bad luck away from being an addictive thing, you know, like if that becomes like the only thing that's keeping me going, you know, but it's not. It's just every now and then I'm like, hey, I want this. And I do the same thing with like work stuff, you know, and like my wife goes, yeah, I mean, she's got her own stuff and her hobbies, and we've got like a million lizards and stuff around my house that are all her, and her friends like go, it's so cool that your husband is like understanding. My husband just hates it. He hates that I spend the money. And my wife goes, my husband spends more than me. His hobbies cost more and his work stuff costs more. That dude ain't afraid of spending money. He's got no room to talk. And I go, you're right. I got no room to talk. It's okay. As long as the bills are paid, I'm good with it, you know?
Right.
As long as we're not like screwing ourselves over in the name of either of our hobbies, whatever, you know, we can afford it. We're doing fine. And but yeah, I every now and then I go, hey, I want this shiny new gear for climbing trees for work. I want, you know, this thing and this thing.
Because you climb the tree still.
I do sometimes. I climb trees on Saturday. I teach new people how to climb. And sometimes I jump up trees because my guys are going slow and I'm still better than them. But yeah, like you know, every now and then I'll go, hey, I want this new tree gear, and I spend a couple $100 there because that shit's all expensive. Where I go, hey, new board games or music or movies or whatever, you know.
For me, the most dangerous purchasing thing that I got into was CCGs. Between Dice Masters and Magic, I just had to back the hell off.
I also didn't count any sort of that sort of game in my stats. Like, I didn't count. I mean, I've obviously, like, they would all fall into the played pile. You know,
Yeah.
obviously I've played Magic, I've played Dice Masters, I've played Age of Sigmar, Champions, like.
Blind packs are
but I just kind of didn't.
Man.
I just didn't count those in.
I avoid them.
So I was looking at my stats. I've played 110 new games this year. So in 199 days, I've played 110 new games.
Damn.
154 games, but 110 of them are new. So
that's not bad at all.
No, 489 plays.
So of the games that are on our shelf of shame, what would you say are your top 5 that you really want to get to the place of played, or the tower of tabled, if you will?
Just one quick thing. I did look up my games for the year, and so this year I've played 44 new games. I've got a total of 100 plays right now on my stats app. And I've got 44 new games, 54 total games compared to last year. And I'm genuinely surprised at how close these are, because I totally figured that last year was going to blow this year out of the water because I wasn't able to make so many of our Friday night game nights because I was working Saturdays. Last year I had a total of 122 plays, 53 games, 48 new. Like, I'm on track to do better this year than I did last year, even though I feel like I just don't. I mean,
wow, I didn't realize I played that much more.
Yeah, I wasn't joking or exaggerating, or it was not hyperbole at all when I said I literally think you get more hours of play per week than me and Tyler combined.
Because I don't
like
right now I'm at about 50.
I don't include any of my like Keyforge, Magic, anything like that. I don't log.
Yeah, and
so that's out of my 489 plays. Like, that doesn't include any type of
and
like
see
that.
I would even be as bold as to say you probably get more than me and Tyler combined and doubled. The only thing that might close that gap, if you counted the time that I spend playing video games, might close that gap somewhat. I still think you would still have.
I'm starting to hit my slow months though, which kind of caused me some anxiety.
Well, all you got to do is go out and buy a new board game. That'll solve that anxiety right up for you.
I mean, I still get play in, but it's not the same. So when we're talking top five, I really don't know how I'm gonna discuss these, because I have games that I really want to play. I have games that I have more interest in playing, but I have some that, like, it really bothers me that I have not played it because it's supposed to be such a good game.
Yeah.
But it's just like never hit the table. And then I have some that I just purchased that I'm really excited to get to the table. So, or some I acquired in a trade that I'm excited to get to the table, but the rule book worries me.
Right. Well, a lot of the ones that I have on my list that I haven't had a chance to play. One, I need multiple players, and it's hard for me to find here at home. And two, it's the time commitment and the rule book. You know, a lot of that is like there's so much going on that I don't have somebody to bounce ideas or questions off of necessarily, and I haven't quite engaged in Reddit and BGG and all of that stuff as much as I probably should have. But, you know, some of the stuff on my, you know, top 5 or talk 5 is stuff that you guys have played, or actually one of them is one that you have played, and the others aren't, actually, now that I'm referencing.
So,
well, that was a journey.
So one for me is one I just picked up at the game at the TimpCon. It was one for my collection that I'm actually really excited to play. I'm interested to see this version of it because it's a Midgard, which is basically 2007 Blood Rage. Like, it was
in 2007 Blood Rage. That would also be Blood Rage being, what, 2011 Rising Sun?
No,
2011 Rising Sun is 2017 Ankh, right?
well, they're actually quite a bit different games. That's why some people struggle with Rising Sun. But so you had, in the timeline, you had Midgard, then you had Chaos in the Old World, and then Blood Rage is kind of the
Chaos. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
And the kind of the Blood Rage is a mix of Chaos and this. More with like the little trackers and stuff like Chaos has. Midgard is, you have the 3 ages. I haven't looked a ton into it, but it's really funny because you like have little sorry type pieces as your monsters. Like some are bigger than the others. Like
pawns?
Yeah. Literally like pawns. It's
because that's what sorry pieces are. They're just pawns. Like there's a name for it.
It's I know. I couldn't think about it. So that's the one.
Shows how often we use those pieces in games.
I'm really excited for.
Yeah, no, we call them meeples now.
Yeah. I'm really excited to play that one. It's probably not going to be the first one I get played off my shelf of shame, but it's definitely one I'm very excited to. I'm excited to see, especially playing the kind of the predecessors, like the grandchildren of it. I love going back.
Yeah.
So
the first one that I've got on my list is the one that you've played, Russ, that you've told me that you like quite a bit, and that's Teotihuacan. And I traded Sierra West for that one based on the game group's interest and my interest in that game itself. After playing through Sierra West, it was pretty fun. It was interesting, but there was something about the way that the player boards kind of just, they irritated me more than they flowed for my game style. And so I thought Teotihuacan would probably be a little bit better style of game for me.
I love Teotihuacan. I don't own it. It's probably, I have a bunch of games that I'm sad that aren't on my shelf. That is right up there, if not the top. It's right there. Probably because it doesn't go on sale very much. I don't know why when I have money I don't go buy these games that I want. I get excited for new shiny God's War, right? Even though I'm dying to get Teotihuacan because, like Zach has it, you have it. So I don't necessarily need it for our group, but I have other groups I want to play that one with.
Yeah.
Like it's so good.
One of the things about that game, though, is that I haven't seen it in game stores very often.
No.
It doesn't last on the shelves there.
It doesn't. It's pretty intimidating to look at.
Yeah.
But it's there is a lot going on, but there's not. By that I mean once you can kind of get in and see what's going on, it's not a super complicated game.
Cool.
So, like when we first pulled it out, me, Zach, and Jared, we were like, holy cow, because you've got tracks everywhere. And it's very pretty, but it is very busy. And you're like, this is gonna be consuming. So I know when I pull it out with some other friends, they're going to be like, what's going on? But it's pretty simple. You have there's a track basically around the outside, and your dice kind of move along. And when you, somewhat like worker placement, when your dice goes there, depending on how high a level they are, they trigger what's there, and you kind of keep moving around. And then when your dice becomes to level 6, it kind of resurrects, for lack of a better term, and you advance one of the other tracks. And it's so good.
It looks awesome.
And it's a Euro. It's one of the games that really started to pull me into liking some Euros because of the player interaction. It's not much, but there is some, and you can kind of ruin some stuff for people. So
cool. What about you, Kenneth?
One of your 95 games.
75. And that's actually the first point I wanted to make is we're gonna pick 5.
Right.
For you, it's from 25. You said, right?
23.
23, and for you, it's from 12, and for me, it's from 75. Right.
I feel bad even asking you to cut that list down.
Like, for me to narrow that down, like, that's so messed up. There's so many good games I own that I haven't played. So
why don't we give Kenneth the next 20 minutes and he can round off the 25 games that he won?
Right? Like literally,
that seems more fair.
If we were to do it, like percentage-wise, my percentage compared to Russ's, I would be naming off, 12 games? Something like that? Or no, it'd be more than that.
You
It'd be like
naming like 40.
Like 20 or 25 games.
Closer to
for
40.
your 5. Yeah.
Because I'm at almost 50%.
Oh, yeah. Shit. You are
probably
almost
like
50%.
45%, somewhere in there, between 45 and 50%.
Yeah, so I'd be hitting 30 plus games solidly. If I went with your percentage, I would be hitting 15. Like,
hey.
So I'm going to narrow it down to 5.
It's called a shelf of shame, Ken.
No, it's a shelf of opportunity.
I think I'm really going to lean into that one.
When you're at like the 80 game mark, that's shame. That's shame.
He's not there yet.
At the 80 game mark.
He's
shame.
This
He's
is
knocking
for you.
him off at 5.
For those that can't see, I've got my middle finger extended toward Russ.
Speaking of Game of Thrones,
is that Wingspan?
Shame.
So the first game is, I feel like I kind of just have to go with the one that I've mentioned a lot lately, and that is Spirit Island. I really want to play Spirit Island.
Nice.
It looks really cool. It looks like a good difficult co-op. It's got awesome theme. I've heard nothing but good about it. Actually, the only bad that I've heard about it is that it can be a little bit like fiddly, and there's a lot of upkeep, but whatever. I really want to play Spirit Island.
The art's awesome on that.
Yeah, it's a beautiful game, and I've heard like so much good about it. So Spirit Island is the first one that I'm going to name of the
5.
We'll call it 5 for now. Games that I'm going to
see.
Bring
What you got to do is that you name it. You'd be like similar to such and such that's also on my shelf, and just add a few.
Yeah.
Honorable mentions.
I like honestly like what's gonna happen is we're gonna take turns, and I'm gonna be going, there's 3 more in there. This, and this, and that's how we'll end it.
See, here's what's funny though. See, you look at your shelf of shame and you're like, oh, this many? I can be honest. Some of these games, like, they were either heavy discounted Target for like $2 that I'll probably play with my family at some point.
I don't have that excuse. Like,
I
buy all my shit on purpose.
But that's what I mean. Like, I've got games that, like, they honestly might not get played. I plan on playing them, but, like, The Wizard Always Wins. I think I paid $1.50 for that. I plan on playing with family. I've actually pulled it out to play, but we got distracted and played something else. But, so out of this list of 12, it was pretty easy to knock off, like, half that I didn't need to take it. Look at.
Sure.
Yeah, there's a good chunk of mine that it's like I want to play them. I want to play all of my games. I also want to play all of your games and all of everyone else's games, and there's just not enough time in the day to play all the games.
I was thinking about that on Friday because you had your 2 bags.
Yeah.
Zach had his bag. Kevin had his bag.
And I didn't bring mine because of that.
Like,
I knew it was going to happen.
We have so many amazing games.
Yeah.
And it's like, it honestly frustrates me more in the fact that we just don't have time.
Yeah.
Like, physically, there's not enough time to play all the games that I want to play.
Yeah,
once this podcast takes off, a retreat is happening.
Oh, yeah. I want to retreat.
I want to play all the games, all of my games on my shelf of shame, all of the games that you own. Like, I want to play all the games. But there are plenty of games on both my shelf of shame and my shelf of pride that I'm like, I don't need that. That one's not going to get mentioned in a top, or like a talk or top 5 or even 10 of any category.
Yeah. So another one that I may actually play tomorrow.
Shut up, dude.
well, only because I can play it solo.
Okay.
I
feel attacked.
The Walking Dead No Sanctuary. I picked it up for $10 at Barnes & Noble, 75% off. It's only the standee version. I didn't get the...
You gonna paint those standees? Just
No.
curious, man.
So
you could.
The good thing about with
There's
The
nothing
Walking
against
Dead, because I'm a
painting
huge
cardboard.
Walking Dead fan, I have, like, Walking Dead Lego guys. I have Walking Dead. So, like, I could pull out characters and not
You
even
should
worry
just
about
get
all
the
that.
Walking Dead miniatures game and put those miniatures into this.
Could. So this one is
It'll feel
scenario
good to buy all
based.
those
I
parts.
kind of seem like I want to play. I'm kind of excited. I've heard it's good. That's why I picked it up. I don't usually buy games that are standy if there's a miniatures version.
Yeah.
But $10 for a good scenario base that's supposed to capture the world of The Walking Dead really well, I had to. So
You did. You definitely had to.
So that is one. And actually, my whole family is Walking Dead.
Cool.
We have people over every Sunday for The Walking Dead for I think about what season on they're on 9. So for like 7 years.
Yeah, nine or
like
10.
7
I mean,
years
they're
we've
way
had
into it.
We've had friends come over every Sunday and watch it. And then when my kids get 14, they kind of binge and catch up. And so
That's cool. Well, the next one on my list is a game that I think that we all want to play, and that's Conan.
yeah, we should play that one.
That's
Because I played Batman, so
Yeah.
the rules shouldn't be that hard. I'd like to play a more open world version.
based on the Shut Up and Sit Down review. That's kind of what really spurned the interest for me in wanting to pick it up, and I found it on my birthday for really, really cheap, and so I got it for like $50, and I still haven't had a chance for it to hit the
I
table.
almost picked that one up, except for I had Batman Coming, because it took a crazy dip for like one day for $27,
Oh, gross.
and by the time I had made my decision to buy it, it was gone. So
How
which was probably
is
good.
that a decision you had to make?
Because
Like,
I had Batman Coming. I don't know why I stopped to think and like was rational thinking at that point.
yeah, that's not your forte. You should have went steep discount. Gotta buy it.
See that
I
deal?
know, and
That's your
and
whole
I
thing.
regret
It's mine.
it. But yeah, we need to play it. I'm curious. You haven't painted it, have you?
Nope, not yet.
Curious to see what you think of the minis when you paint it. So
The minis don't look too bad. I've organized it. I don't think there's a game on my shelf right now that I have that
they don't
hasn't
look
been
too
opened
bad
and
until I
punched.
started paint some of the Batman. Like they looked amazing, and then I started painting them, and I was like, they're okay. But
I'm gonna go out on a limb here and guess that the guy who builds minis for a living probably has an eye for what he likes in a
Yeah.
mini. And if he says they're all right, they're probably all right, Russ.
But in detail, you start to lose some of the lines, like when you go to paint.
Sure.
And that was kind of like, ugh.
The monsters themselves are really good.
Yeah.
I think that the heroes look pretty good too, but the details are washed out on a couple of the other general dudes. But
Yeah.
I'm not worried about them as much as I am the giant snake.
Ooh, yeah.
He's
we
badass.
We should play that.
So the second game that I'm gonna bring up is one that for a minute there was living in my game bag, and I was bringing it along, and I honestly don't think that anyone ever even looked at it but me. And
Do you guys
it's a
understand
game that
how guilty I feel when you guys bring your bags of games and we don't get them to the table? Like it's a literal. I feel bad. I'm like, oh, Ken has all these games he wants to play. I want to play them, and we don't have time.
Well, it's just part of it. Like I bring my like 2 big bags of games for 2 main reasons. Number 1, I have those 2 bags and damn it, I'm going to use them.
They're pretty sweet.
And number 2, like there are games that I have that are different and do a different thing than what you do. And
Right.
there's games that like, when I bought Abomination, I knew that I wanted to play it. I knew that Tyler wanted to play it. I knew that you wanted to play it. So it was like, I should definitely bring that one, And then there's times that it's like, all right, we've got 170 people that are showing up for game night. I guess I'll bring Sidereal Confluence because that's the best game for large player counts.
New tables helping that.
Yeah, that's actually been really nice being able to split up the group when we have a lot of people. But yeah, I those are the 2 main reasons. Is if I go, I have something that specifically fits this situation, whether it be a new hotness thing or a player count thing, and because I have the bags and I want to use them. I'm trying to get some mileage out of those bad boys. But yeah, the game that I was carrying around for a while, and it has become a victim of the dreaded curse of being behind something. and just not seeing it is it's called Block by Block, and it's a game of like it's an insurrection game. It's all cubes, blocks, and there's like 4 different factions that are essentially like rioting in this city, trying to take it over and fight the cops. And there's like a faction of like workers and a faction of, I don't even remember what the factions are supposed to be, but they're each like a little bit different. They work a little bit differently. I don't think they're radically asymmetric, but if I remember correctly, there is some asymmetry there. There's a certain amount of like working together, but at the same time you have your goal. It's really colorful. It's really fun. It's a really so I ordered that game about a year ago, and I want to say that there was like actively news every evening about riots somewhere in America. And it was like, felt really topical, really like borderline political. And I feel like that doesn't necessarily help it, but it's just like, it's a theme that I like. I like the idea of, standing up and fighting the man and taking the city back. And it looks cool, and mechanically it seems really fun. And like, it's just a game that I want to get to the table that just hasn't yet. And because it's not a popular game, it's not Spirit Island that everyone knows is good. It hasn't really gotten a second look from anyone but me.
That sounds interesting. I think I remember hearing about that game. And I feel like I can picture the box.
Yeah, it's like a colorful cube, like,
yeah,
marching in the streets. It's a really lighthearted take on a really pretty poignant subject matter. Anyways, Block by Block, that's another one I really want to get off the shelf of opportunity and onto the table of happiness.
Yeah. The Tower of Tabled.
Okay.
All right, so I'm trying to decide between 2.
Come on, Russ. You really don't have a whole hell of a lot of thinking to do, bud. You're just dragging this out here.
You're having a hard time deciding between 2. Oh, you want to name your whole list, huh?
Might as well. Let's get it over with. It'd probably take less time.
Yeah. So I have a Risk game that I've played, but I'm not going to name that because,
You just did.
Because it's Risk.
I know. But see, I did name it, but
you're not going to name it
didn't.
because it's Risk?
Risk Lord of the Rings that I picked up, but one I have that I got in a trade, it was kind of thrown in. The gentleman I made a trade with felt like I needed more for what I gave him, so he gave me Mars Needs Mechanics. And I don't know a ton about it. I love the art. It's kind of this, I don't know, looks like 60s versions of rocket ships and stuff. And so honestly, I've pulled it out to look at it. I don't know much about it, but I want to play it. That's why I got it part of a trade. I don't want to just get rid of it. Like, it genuinely has my interest. I love the idea. So Mars Needs Mechanics.
Right on. The next one on my list, I've mentioned a couple of times on the show, and it's something that we've all expressed interest in wanting to play, and that's Tricarion. It's easily one of the games on my list that I'm sure is going to jump to the top of my overall list and in ratings and all of that. But as soon as I get a chance and have, 4 hours to actually commit to knocking it out,
I'm so interested in that game. I love the theme.
One thing I've heard people actually compare Abomination to is Tricarion, as far as somewhat of a feel and somewhat
is it a worker placement?
Huh. Yeah, it is. Thank you.
What that?
That was me.
Oh, wow, that was really loud. Cool.
I pushed the wrong button.
Yeah, you did.
But we're going to edit all that out, right?
I don't know. We'll see.
I don't know. I feel like it's kind of funny if we don't.
So what's up next, Kenneth?
Oh, another one that continues to mostly live in my game bag that I have just been dying to play. I really like. It's been mentioned on the show before, and it has so many things about it that I want to get into.
I think I know what it is.
If you're thinking of Study in Emerald, you are dead on correct.
That's the one I was thinking of.
God,
I
wanna
wanted to play this
game
on
so
Friday
bad.
so bad.
I know, man. Like
I
that
saw it
game
in the
is so
bag, and I was
cool.
like, I want to play it.
Yeah, your deck building, your hidden roles, your like hidden alliances.
I always
It's in
think
a
of Wizard of Oz
Cthulhu.
with that game. I don't. It has nothing to do with that, right?
No, dude, it's Cthulhu and
I
Sherlock.
know. I don't know why I always think of
The
Wizard
Emerald
of
City?
Oz. Yeah,
Because Oz is like an Emerald City.
yeah.
Yeah, that's that. I don't know.
But I want to play that game really bad.
Yeah, it looks so cool. Like the whole idea of like not knowing who your teammates are at the start, and like I just want to play it. I want to because there's a part of me that like I don't even fully understand how it would work. That it's a deck builder and you don't know who's who. Like, how do you have a market where you're buying cards and it doesn't immediately go, oh, I just couldn't help but notice you were buying cultists, Russ. I wonder what side you're on. You know, like I want to see what the implementation is like. I've heard that it's great. There's an element of social deduction, so it obviously can't be
based on
as,
what you're saying here, it kind of seems like Richard Lionheart similarities.
I don't think you need to mention that every episode.
No. I'm just saying, because I love that you do have that, like you're on
Yeah.
teams and that.
Yeah, well, see, and that's the thing is I don't know exactly how that's implemented because, as crazy as it sounds, I haven't actually played the game, so I don't really fully know. I know that there's an element of teams, and I know that there's like hidden stuff, and I know that it's a deck builder, and I know that I just want to play it so bad because it looks so cool.
Yeah, I've heard great things
And
about that game.
the newer Martin Wallace game, Australia,
I
which
love
is
that game.
another one that is on my shelf of shame that I want to play that one.
Have you not played it?
No, I haven't.
I'm ready to play that one anytime. It's a good one.
Sweet. I want to play that. That is set in the same world. Like that is
Oh,
so in a Study in Emerald.
that has me even more excited.
Like from what I understand, in a Study in Emerald, they managed to beat back the Great Old Ones to Australia, and they kind of isolated them there. And there's still some people who are stuck living in Australia, and that's where you come in the game. Australia is your sort of
so
cohabitating
Australia, you
with
were
them.
you were
But that
farming
takes place,
and laying railroad tracks.
Decades after a Study in Emerald.
Right. So you are farming and laying railroad tracks, but you have the Great Old Ones you have to keep back that you kind of awaken. It's
And
really good.
I want to say that basically the broad strokes is that like in a Study in Emerald, the cultists win and they're able to summon the Great Old Ones, and then people beat them back, or possibly that's the beating them back is happening in a Study in Emerald. And I mean, a Study in Emerald is
And that's
based
not
on
one. Is that very
it's based
easy
on a
to
book
find?
by Neil Gaiman. So there's two. There's a first edition and a second edition of a Study in Emerald. I have the second edition. The first edition is hard to find. I've also heard that they cleaned up a lot of stuff. Some say too much, even, because I've heard people say that they prefer the first version that was, by and large, it sounds like it was kind of the wonkier, more rules, more fiddly, different, lot more things going on and things to track, sort of thing that they got rid of. But there are people who say that they got rid of too much. But I have the second edition, and it's not terribly hard to find. I don't see a whole lot of stores carrying it, but I want to say that you can get online just about any time and find it.
Because that's now that you say it's like the same world as Australia, like I kind of want it.
Well, I intend to harvest that seed on this weekend on Friday. You know, like I just planted a really, really good one. Sweet.
So, for me, the next one I'll talk about is I picked up in a trade. I'm super excited to play it. I really wanted to get it before Halloween, but I would lie if the rule book isn't what's holding me back. Like, I think it's quite the undertaking, and that's Life Form. Like, I'm really excited to play it. I love the mat that I have for it. I'm slightly intimidated in spending the time to learn it because I think it might be a little fiddly from what I hear, and I don't want it to be a little fiddly and then people not like it and it doesn't get played again. That's kind of my fear. So
Yeah, I
Seems
mean,
reasonable.
I feel like when there's a game like that, you just got to pick the right people, you know? Like,
and I would be lying if I didn't say the Galactic Strike Force is playing in the back of my mind, because that one was bad rule book, set in space, not related at all, but I'm just like,
right?
I'm just
Yeah.
like, oh, I hope this isn't it is
Huh.
not that.
Yeah, that's,
But
I don't know. I
only
know that,
similar.
like, there's games that I've got that I look at it and I go, I want to play this at the very first opportunity I can, that my wife isn't there
Yeah.
because I know that she won't like it, you know? Or I've got games that I'm like, all right, you know, the first game night that whoever can't show up to, I'm going to try and get this one on the table, you know? So it's all about just finding that right
Yeah.
group. It sounds like, from what I understand about life form, and especially like hearing that it's kind of wonky rules, go for people who can
Yeah.
see past the rules and like get into the theme, because the theme of like an alien hunting you
Right.
on a ship or whatever, that's just cool.
I mean, I've read great things about it, and it seems amazing. And I love the idea that so it's a one versus many. I love the idea that the one is an alien, but there's like two, for lack of better terms, pawns, and like everyone may attack the one, but that's a clone. Like it's fake.
Huh.
So
Yeah, that sounds really cool.
but
Well, next up for me is another one versus many that I think that we would all enjoy hitting the table, and I think it might be on your shelf of shame as well, and that's Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
That is on my shelf of shame as well.
we need to play this one.
Shelf of opportunity.
Yeah, that one is one that like so one of my good like good dude that I used to hang out with quite a bit, and he played Dice Masters for a minute, and I worked with him, and you know, life's got busy and he changed careers, and I don't see him a whole lot anymore. He backed the Kickstarter of that one. It has,
Yeah,
like,
the works.
this super awesome deluxe version. And the last time I talked to him about that, he still hadn't played it either. I'm like going, bro, that's like the fourth board game you own. Why haven't you played it?
Yeah.
You know? So but yeah, that's one that I really want to play. I've watched the rules videos. It's simple enough. It's one of those games that like I've thought about busting it out with my wife and the kids, because you know it's like a 4 versus 1 type of game,
Yeah.
and 3 kids, wife, and me. That quickly adds up to 4 versus 1.
Yeah.
But for whatever reason, I just like there's never been the right Saturday afternoon or
Sure.
whatever, you know. But,
I'm in
See,
the
and I
process.
love one versus many's, so like that game appeals to me quite a bit.
Well, I'm in the process of designing and possibly casting some actual mousers that are to scale to the turtles, so that they're not as big as the turtles like the ones in the works. That kind of
nice.
bugged me, but
Yeah.
I want to get the little guys.
That's
So
cool. Yeah,
Everything I hear about it, it's a great game.
yeah, it seems really cool, and they just did the Kickstarter relaunch, and I looked really closely at it, and I did just
they
I don't know.
redid the game basically.
Yeah.
They're doing it in the adventures
They-
system.
They modified it pretty heavily, and I didn't. I don't know. It just didn't appeal
Not
to me
every-
quite as much.
You can
You know,
actually
you talked
incorporate
about-
everything from this version with the new version.
You know, you talked about Studying Emerald like 1 and 2. Like
Yeah,
some games are okay to have a reboot, and it's okay. Like there's nothing wrong with it. But some versions are okay to even have both. Like I love Twilight Imperium 3.
yeah,
TI4 is great,
yeah.
but there are some things about TI3 like I genuinely enjoy and plan on, even if I get TI4, keeping TI3. Might not
Right.
get the table a ton, but it's still like I
See,
love
I-
the tech tree of TI3. I know it's streamlined in the TI4, like I get that, But there are some parts to TI3 that are just like I really enjoy how.
Dude, they
That
ain't even
works.
changing a damn thing but the art, but I fully intend to get the re-release of Sidereal Confluence and keep the old one just to keep
Yeah.
it because I love that. Like, that might be the first board game that I literally just have to have.
Well, and I've
'Cause
been tempted
there would
to
be
do that
like-
with Twilight Imperium.
There would be like no reason to play the old version once
Yeah.
I've got the new version.
It's got
'Cause
that
it's not like-
nostalgia wrap.
It's not like they're changing the game. They're just
Right.
they're giving it a glossy coat of paint.
Yeah,
Um,
that it deserves.
But that game is so awesome and so totally one of my favorites that I intend to get the new version and keep the old version just to keep it.
Yeah, I know Zach collects the
Cosmic
Encounters editions. Same kind of thing. I know, like I've been tempted for the Twilight Imperium, the old ones, just because they look not amazing art. I mean, is that
Yeah, they look
Dated?
of the day. Every one of them looks like it's of the day.
Yeah.
And I mean,
like if you want to see how board game just art and all of that has changed over the years, just look at
yeah, well, I
Twilight
mean,
The
Imperium.
evolution of it.
The really crazy thing is they are all of them iterations of the same basic picture of like the space lion standing gloriously with
yeah,
stuff going on in the background.
kind of. But man, you can
Oh yeah,
really
no,
see like
I know I've seen them and like, but I just couldn't.
But it
remember
goes
if
to
they
show
are
how-
all that space lion
Yeah.
theme,
right,
you know,
and it
running
goes to
through 'em.
show the kind of like the kind of money that used to go into games compared to what goes into games now.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But yeah, so but the Turtles, that I don't know if I've ever heard anything negative on that Turtles game, which is pretty good for an IP game
For sure.
to not have like, oh, it's an IP grab or
Yeah,
all that.
the-
In fact, I've seen some videos of people that I would assume wouldn't like it that really talk about how great it is.
yeah. It's got a really interesting mechanic where the turtles like essentially the
Share the outside edges of dice. The
yeah.
outside
So the
five or whatever.
the seating arrangement can genuinely impact the game.
Yeah.
Where like each of the turtles shares their end dice and the ability that's on the end dice with the guys next to them, except Raphael.
He just
'Cause
shares
he's
his,
an
but he
asshole.
doesn't take any.
Yeah. So like you don't necessarily want to put Raphael right in the middle of two other ones. You kind of want to put Raphael on an end.
Yeah.
So there's only the one side that's kind of wasted. Like there's and then like Donatello has like two more dice than everyone else because he's in tech stuff. So you've got the seating arrangement, and then you also have like the order in which you place your die after you roll them. The order in which you place your dice. You need to kind of talk to each other and be like, all right, you know, do you need are you going to be helped more by this one piece of movement or the one attack that I've got here? I could put either one on the end. What's going to help you most, and what's going to help the guy on the other side of me? Like,
Yeah.
there's some really, really cool choices to make in that game. I watched a couple of like pretty in-depth rules videos. I've been very close to getting that one off the shelf of shame a time
Well,
or
the
two.
good thing is when we have our, top 5 or just favorite 3 or whatever we're going to call it for one versus many's, we'll talk about that one.
Yeah.
Off the shelf of shame.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, what's up next for you, Kenneth?
Oh.
Come on, it should be easy. You're down to 80 to choose from.
Right? Probably just got to go with Game of Thrones. That actually, Game of Thrones might be the game that has sat on my shelf of shame the longest now. I've definitely owned that game for solidly 2 years, maybe closer to 3, and I've yet to play it. Even though, like, I mean,
I want to play that so bad.
earlier we heard how excited Russ is, and honestly, I mean, it's a territory control with some bluffing and hidden
And politics.
and
oh,
there's
man.
politics, and there's like the hidden orders that you lay down rather than just like going, I am going to do this. Everyone lays down their orders and then they all flip them over and you're like, haha, surprise, I'm doing this now, you know?
Yeah.
And like all of that I feel like really fits our whole game group. really well. Like everything about that game seems like it would fit our game group. It's asymmetric. There's so much to it. And yet we haven't played it because it's a big time commitment and a big player count.
When we say
commitment.
time commitment, what are we looking at? Like if we schedule the Friday, say we are playing Game of Thrones.
We're only probably playing Game of
Right,
Thrones.
but we're only playing that. Read up.
Yeah.
Like, is that doable in a night, or is it like we need a Saturday afternoon like TI?
I've heard it's comparable to TI, especially on that first playthrough. I've heard that it can be an 8-hour game on a first playthrough. Okay. And
that being said, we have started TI at 10 p.m.
Yeah.
on a Friday and got done at 7 a.m. So.
Yeah. So that's one that I've heard that once you kind of got it, you can chop a lot of that time off as long as you're not too AP prone.
Okay, so it might be difficult on Saturdays coming up, but I say we commit to a Saturday coming up during the holidays.
Well,
I want this game to
Yeah, you talked me into it. Now all we need is 4 more people.
We could do that if we commit to a day.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah,
I don't know.
We can
the
work
theme
to
and everything with that game, like I
and,
want it.
And really, I mean, we could play with 6 more people because I have the expansion as well.
And I love that. So
I'll start watching the show then.
A while ago, I saw
Download
that somebody
the
had.
audiobooks.
Dude, it would be so much funnier if you don't watch the show until after we play, and then you're watching the show. I don't think that's how it happened.
This is not how the game played out.
I distinctly remember the Lannisters invading the Martells. That's exactly what happened in the game that I played.
I remember seeing somebody had a giant 3D board they made of that game, and I've always wanted to play it since I saw that.
I've been tempted to buy the big playmat that they came out with recently, but I look at it and I go, okay, so I've got this game, and I've got the big Mother of Dragons expansion, and I've got the 2 miniature expansions that came out before that, and none of that shit has hit a table or a neoprene mat or any damn thing at all. So I'm like, do I really? Because I love me some neoprene, but I just can't. I haven't quite been able to bring myself to buy that piece of neoprene when I've owned this game for 2 freaking years.
So my 5th one is right up there with that, but it's not quite the time commitment or anything. But I've owned it almost 2 years. I won it in a quick drawing at SaltCon, and it is probably, I feel the most guilt about not getting this game to the table because it's probably my most highly rated game on Board Game Geek. It's Harbor. It's just a small game. It looks like the box of...
I've got a promo card if you want it.
Yeah, because I get to play it all the time.
Yeah.
It looks like a tiny epic game size-wise.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be great. I've pulled it out like 2 or 3 times at the cabin to play solo, and then I just I'm going to look at something else. And I've thought about, selling it or getting rid of it, but everything I read, just everything says it's such a great game. So it's going to be one of those I know I'm going to play and be like, oh, why haven't I played this? So yeah, someday.
Well,
Harbor.
I'll hook you up with the promo either way.
Nice.
So you can have more shit to put in that box. So the last one on my list is a game that I didn't think I was going to get a copy of, but I traded some paint work for this, and I haven't completed the paint job. So that's one reason why I haven't allowed myself to dig into the rules and commit to actually trying to play it.
Another one, if it's one I think of that I see up on the top right of your shelf that I actually want to play really bad.
All the minis are assembled. It's ready to go. It's not painted yet, but they're assembled and ready to dig into, and that's Blackstone Fortress. So
I've heard great things about that.
So have I. As far as like a dungeon crawl and all of that, it's got that feel, and I've heard it's pretty epic, and the story's really well tied into the theme and all of that. So it should be fun once it actually makes it to the table.
Nice.
What's last on your what 17
Cthulhu Wars
games do you have?
Certain factions of Cthulhu
with.
Wars? Your 11-player map of Cthulhu Wars.
That doesn't technically exist yet, but I don't think that one will stay on the shelf of shame too long. Gaia Project, Food Chain Magnate, Brass Birmingham, Vast, Mansions of Madness.
Those all sound really good.
Yeah, I know. They all sound great, and I really, really want to play all of them.
I didn't know you had Food Chain Magnets. See, that's the stuff stacked behind stuff.
Yeah, I know. See what I'm saying here? Like,
I knew he had it because he, Zach,
Cryptid,
and Kevin all got it on a great deal at Paragon.
Yeah, and Cryptid, Diplomacy, I really want to play. Dominant Species. Oh, dude, I want to play Dominant Species so bad. I'm at this point. I want to play Founders of Gloomhaven. I've heard mixed reviews, but I want to play it. It looks really cool.
I feel like the reviews I've seen of that, I could be wrong, but I feel like those reviews were more of a disappointment. It wasn't Gloomhaven.
Right.
Liberty or Death. Like, how have I not played that? That game looks awesome. Like a Root style, like very asymmetric game about the American Revolution. That sounds great.
That does sound cool.
Oh, there's so many. It makes me sad.
Well,
I feel zero guilt. There's
what
no
we
guilt.
should do,
I'm just like, oh,
what we should do
to
help with this shelf of shame, Ken, is you should don't try to tackle it all at once, right? The way to eat an elephant is one bite at a time. You just pick one game a week.
One game a week.
Table.
I was really hoping you were to say just pick like one small group of people to kidnap and lock in a room and just play all your games with you. Because honestly, at a certain point, I think that's the easier way to go.
With a shelf of opportunity like that, it might be.
Right.
Here's the thing, though. You have to play games at a rate faster than you purchase the games to cut into any of that.
I actually have been doing that recently, and there's been a few games that have come off my shelf of shame in the past few months that I've been really happy about. Probably chief among them actually is Crusaders.
Me too. I almost bought that instead of Abomination, but Abomination took it.
That game sat on my shelf of shame. It was there for a couple of months. It wasn't like crazy long. That game was really, really good.
I'm gonna own that one too.
I would say shelf of shame to shelf of opportunity. I would say shelf of opportunity is maybe first 3 months, and then it moves to like shame.
I don't really like how you have to put everything in a box like this.
Yeah, I'm gonna lean into the opportunity side of things and just try to continue to whittle away at what I've got.
Yeah. How about we play games and enjoy them? And I am definitely in a phase in my life where I can play games faster than I can buy
I think
them.
this part of why I play all mine is I feel guilty. Like, this is why I don't buy legacy games anymore, because I have Pandemic Season 1 that I'm halfway through, and every time I see it, I just feel guilt for not playing it. Like, I feel like I should be playing that. I'm a weird kid. I'm also that kid that, like, when I had my stuffed animal as a kid, if I hadn't played with it for a while, I'd feel like, Toy Story, like, oh, my toy feels bad. I haven't played with it. So to have games on my shelf that I don't play with, I feel like that inanimate object looks at me and goes, you haven't played in a while. Oh.
Yeah. It sounds like you just like experience a lot of guilt, and I have my own theories about that, and it's one of the like biggest differences between me and you just as individual people, and it's pretty easy to probably put your finger on. I think that you get a lot of guilt from a thing that isn't in my life at all.
Oh no, I don't. Nah.
Did I mention Galaxy Defenders? I mean, like that one's there. That game looks rad.
Kind of on my want list. I see it sometimes.
Yeah, I've heard that that's like the closest thing to actually like what XCOM actually feels like playing in a board game versus the XCOM board game. I said Gaia Project, right? Because
yep.
God, Gaia Project looks awesome. There's so many games.
All of these
Brass,
games,
dude, I want to play Brass.
I want to play Brass
like,
really bad.
Vast, like I just got the Mysterious Manor. That game looks so cool. That one I don't think will last too long on the shelf.
No,
but yeah, there's so many.
Well, before we go through your entire...
The other thing that's on my shelf of shame, I should say, for all of us, is D&D. Like, it's kind of sitting right there now.
That one's like... I feel like now that we've built characters, that one is...
it's in the realm of reach.
Yeah. If not, then I've wasted a lot of hours doing nothing.
If absolutely nothing else, it is currently in the free fall off of the shelf of shame onto the table of totally doing this.
Well, on that note, thanks for listening. Please rate and review the show on iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, or whatever podcatcher you use. And if you've got suggestions for an episode or a Talk 5, or you just want to tell us about your shelf of shame, send it to thelategamepodcast@gmail.com or send us a message on our website or social media. You can find us at thelategamepodcast.com, at The Late Game Podcast on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, as well as YouTube. Thanks again for staying up with The Late Game.
So 51st State, Arkham Horror, Australia, Awkward Guess, Batman the Animated Series, Almost Got 'Em, Betrayal at Baldur's Gate, Black Orchestra, Block by Block, Borderlands, Tiny Tina's Robot Tea Party, Brass Birmingham, Bunny Kingdom, Cartographers, City of Horror, Coldwater Crown, Critical Mass, Cry Havoc, Cryptid,